Hey, welcome back to Flow. And in today's lesson, we are going to be talking about purging and cleansing. So today is all about environment design. We are going to be constructing and designing and shaping our environment and the surroundings around us to give us maximum efficiency and as much focus power as possible. Proximity is power. And throughout this lesson, we are going to be diving deep into why our proximity is power and why our environment shapes our mind and also shapes our behavior. Let's get into the lesson. This is a picture of Victor Hugo. And Victor Hugo, he is the legendary author and writer of books such as Les Miserables and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And one moment in his life, he was really struggling to complete a book. And he was on a very, very tight deadline. And he was going through like a big writer's block. He couldn't really get out the ideas inside of his head. And it goes to show that even legends and great writers and great creative thinkers, even they struggle with writer's block. It happens to every one of us. And so what he did was actually very brilliant. He took all of his clothes and he put it inside of a closet. And he put a lock on that closet and he gave away the key. So he no longer had access to his clothes. The only piece of clothing that he had was like this big, gigantic robe that he had. And because he locked away all his clothes in the closet, he couldn't leave the house because he had no clothes to wear unless he wanted to go out in his robe. And so he couldn't leave the house. And because he couldn't leave the house, the environment forced him to write and write ferociously. So for the next few months, and to meet his deadline, he locked himself away inside his room, inside his house, and he wrote and he wrote and he wrote. And thus, the book, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, was born. And he wrote this book in just 6 months' time. And now, just using that 6 months of time really brought about a timeless piece of classic that we celebrate even to this day, even after he has passed. So it was worth that time of locking himself in his room to produce something that really brings value to society. And it has now become a legend and an iconic book. So this is the importance of the environment. So let's talk about environment design. And to really illustrate this, I want to give you an example, a study that was done at the Massachusetts General Hospital. So at the Massachusetts General Hospital, this was the layout of their cafeteria before they conducted this research. So as you can see, the boxes in the light gray are beverage refrigerators that does not contain bottled water. They just contain sodas and juices. And in the black boxes were beverage refrigerators that contained bottled water. So they wanted to figure out if they can manipulate and shape people's behaviors without telling them what to do. They had no instructions. They didn't hand out flyers telling them about what they were going to do. But they want to figure out if they can change people's behaviors just by changing the environment, just by switching things around. So they decided to switch some things around. So they decided to add water to all of their refrigerators. So as you can see, now all of these refrigerators, they added bottled water. They didn't get rid of the sodas. They simply just added more bottled water to these refrigerators. And the white boxes, by the way, those are just like the food stands, the rest of the cafeteria. And so here is a side-by-side comparison. Here is the cafeteria before on the left and the cafeteria after they added the bottled waters. So this is what happened. Without telling anybody about this experiment, water consumption sales went up by 25% and soda consumption dropped by 11%. They didn't tell anybody to do anything. They didn't tell the people to buy more water and drink less soda. They simply changed some things around in the environment and it changed people's behaviors. Just by changing some items around, it shifted the mindset and the behaviors of the people. And James Clear says, one of the most effective ways to reduce the friction associated with your habits is to practice environment design. That's what we are going to be looking at today. So to give you another depiction of how important environment is, picture a shark in the water. A shark in the water is the king of its domain, right? It is its environment. It is its domain. But if you take that same shark and you place them in a different environment, say a desert, for example, then it no longer can become itself. It no longer can become that best version, the best shark version of itself. So that's how important this environment it plays to our lives. It really shapes who we are. And by shaping our environment, we can shape our behavior. And so we talked about the inverse of focus before. And the inverse of focus is simply distraction. The opposite of focus is having a lot of things that take away your attention. So if you take away all the things that take away your attention, then we naturally get focus. So if we remove distraction from our environment, the default that it becomes is focus. This is what we are trying to achieve, to remove all these distractions so that the default becomes focus. Less is more. Less is more. And this is a concept known as minimalism. And minimalism is pretty much, living with a small amount of physical things, and I would say digital things as well. And living with a minimum amount of digital things. And pretty much minimalism is the art of getting rid of things, material things that we really don't need in our lives, but we have been brainwashed and manipulated by mainstream media to make us feel superior when we have more and more material items. But it is not of our own doing. We have been brainwashed by society or by media and society too to become consumers and not creators who we should really achieve to becoming. And so this is from the Minimalists. They said that minimalism is a tool that can assist you in finding freedom. Freedom from fear, freedom from worry, freedom from overwhelm, freedom from guilt, freedom from depression, freedom from trappings of the consumer culture we've built our lives around. Real freedom. And getting rid of things you might not notice at first, but it will really bring you real freedom. Real mental freedom at that. Minimalism and productivity. How does this work? So to really illustrate how powerful minimalism is and how powerful the concept of less is more is, let's take a story from Michael Phelps. Okay, Michael Phelps, he is the world record holder in having the most Olympic medals in history. He is straight up a history maker. And this was his to-do list throughout his entire career as an Olympian. Wake up and get in the pool. That was his entire daily schedule. It was to wake up and to get in the pool. And even though he only had these action items, right, he found power in these two small items. Again, instead of dividing his energy amongst 20 different to-do lists, he decided to use that energy and to multiply it into just two things. Wake up and get in the pool, or actually I would say one thing. And so this is what happened when he only focused on these two things. He won medals. Not just one medal, not just two medals, but 28 total medals. I mean, even winning one medal is hard enough, but he won 28 of them, and 23 were gold medals just because he focused on one thing and one thing only. So minimalism is a multiplier. Minimalism is a multiplier. And consumerism is a divider. Okay, really important. Consuming things, being a consumer of materialistic items is a divider, and minimalism is a multiplier. Minimalism will help you to create many multiples in magnitudes of order. So minimalism is maximalism. Less is more. The less you have, the more quality of attention you place on the few things that you have. I mean, it doesn't mean get rid of everything. I mean, that's not the point of minimalism. It's essentially essentialism. That's a better word to describe this concept. It's essentialism, and there's a great book called Essentialism, and which I highly recommend if you want to discover more about this concept. But we are essentially aiming for higher focus through essentialism. We have to ask ourselves the question, will this get me closer to my goal, or is it distracting me? If it's distracting me, we get rid of it, simply put. And if it gets me closer to my goal, then we keep it. So let's get rid of the menial to focus on what's truly important. All the little stuff, all the material things that you have in your house, in your life, they're so menial, they're so trivial, and they just take up space. They take up physical space and mental space. So just getting rid of that and to really focus on what's truly important to us, our goals, our vision, our relationships, our friends, our partners, our craft, our skills, and our experience far outweighs having those things around to distract us from. And so it's not about working harder, right? It's about working smarter. It's about doing less, but putting more energy into the things that are really important to our lives. Addition by subtraction. This is a similar concept, and it's used by Japanese companies. They practice what is known as learn production. And so in these Japanese companies, they try to remove every single inefficiency in every part of the production process as possible. They really drill this down, like really engineering this thing so that they can get every single efficiency, every single advantage possible in every single process. And so they do this by looking into their manufacturing process and getting rid of any efficiency that they see. They also do this by practicing what is known as relentless reduction, removing as much waste as possible. Even rearranging their workspace so employees don't waste their time looking for tools in a messy environment. They want everything to be clean, to be organized, so that employees don't waste time looking for things. You know, when you're in a messy environment and you don't know where is where because it's so messy? Well, if we practice this type of minimalism and subtraction or addition by subtraction type of lifestyle, we know where everything is. So we're not leaking willpower. We are really maximizing our efficiency so that we can focus on our craft. And this concept can also be used not just in the physical environment, not just in the manufacturing process, but it can also be used in relationships and teams. You can remove bad teammates to make the team stronger as a whole. And great businesses, they design or simplify their services and products to achieve their vision with the minimum amount of steps possible. And I'll give you some examples of great businesses that have simplicity in their business models and in their minds. So let me give you an example. So let's take the old way of building cars, okay? How do we build a car? How do we build a gasoline car? Well, we have to produce engine parts and then gear parts, and then we gotta make the transmission, we gotta make the exhaust, we gotta make the battery, and we also gotta make the grill so that it has good heat ventilation. And so that's the old traditional way, right? And it takes many, many steps. It's a complex process to really get a fully functional car working. But what if, instead of doing all of that, we take an electric motor, we take a few car parts, we take a computer chip, and we put that together, and that becomes our method of transportation. Well, that's exactly what Tesla did, right? They really simplified this process and really looked for places where they can maximize their efficiency. And not only do you have a very simple type of car, but it is also one of the fastest cars available and is one of the most aerodynamic cars, and I must say it is one of the most beautiful cars available. And so simplicity is beauty. Here are other examples, other business examples with simple designs. Apple, their products are very, very simple, very minimalistic. Tesla, and you can also see this in architecture, landscapes and workplaces. So Apple, they really focus on the user experience more than anything. And so if you provide the user with so many things, all these complicated apps and all these complicated buttons and everything, the user gets confused. So they really try to minimize things so that it is as user-friendly as possible. And look at the beautiful minimalistic designs, such as these watch companies, right? So too many things distract us visually. It creates too much chaos, which creates a bad customer experience for these businesses. Even Steve Jobs said, you've got to start with the customer experience and work back toward the technology, not the other way around. That's very important. Because many companies today, they want to innovate in their technology, but that's not the whole point. The whole point of using technology is to improve our lives, is to improve the customer experience. And usually that comes down to really simplifying things, to not make it complicated for the customer. So proximity is power. I have talked about this before. And so you are the average of the 5 people you spend time with most. Who you surround yourself with is who you become. But this not only applies to the people you hang around with, but it also applies to the things that you hang around with. It also applies to the environment that you are around with most. So if you really think about it, what is the 5 things that I surround myself with most? Where do I spend my time? What kind of environment do I spend my time most in? Because that creates power. Proximity is power. So it's not only true with people, it's also true with things, both physical and digital, by the way. So like the apps that you have on your phone and your computer, that is proximity. And that can shape who you really are. You become what you surround yourself with on a daily basis. So I think I gave this example before, but let's take that example of a guitar. Let's say you're trying to practice the guitar and try to really get good at this thing. Well, if you leave your guitar inside of your closet far and away, and you leave it in a far distance, right? Then you're not going to really practice that guitar as much because the distance, the proximity is far away, out of sight, out of mind, right? But what if you placed your guitar like right next to your bed where you see it every single day? Well, the closer you are to that object, the more likely you are to shifting your behavior into creating that habit of playing that guitar. Proximity is power. Distracting things in close proximity will magnify its distracting power. So if we put distracting things that are close to us, we will more likely get distracted. Whereas on the other hand, if we put things that help us with our focus, then we will magnify its focus power. So the inverse is also true, okay? And so, for example, if you put a PS5 right next to your bed where it's easily accessible, the more likely you are going to play it. In fact, I will bet money on that you will be playing your PS5 a lot more if you place it next to you than if you put it inside your closet. So if you have your PlayStation next to your bed, plugged into your TV, all set up and ready to play, the more you will play it, simply put. And the inverse is also true. What we don't surround ourselves with, we don't become. What we don't surround ourselves with, we don't become. If we remove that PS5, get it out of the environment, we don't play it. Things that are good for you, you want to leave them close to you. This applies to friends, relationships, to things, and digital products. Things that are bad for you, you want to put it far away from you. And I'll give you an example, an experiment, and this is a quite famous experiment. It's scattered through a lot of personal development books. So in this experiment, they had 67 participants, and they divided them into 3 different groups. And so each group, they were placed inside of a room. And inside this room, they had cookies put right in front of them. And everybody can smell the fresh aroma of these cookies in this little room that they were staying in. And so they divided the group into 3 different groups. One group, they placed the cookies inside the room. And next to the cookies, they also placed radishes. And this group, they were only allowed to eat the radishes and not the cookies. So they had to restrain themselves from eating the cookies. The other group, they placed inside the room with the cookies, but they let them eat the cookies. And the other group, the third group, was a control group. So they had no cookies, or they didn't bring any cookies into the room. So they had no idea about the cookies. And after a few minutes of either smelling the cookies or eating the cookies, they had them take a very challenging puzzle. And this is what ended up happening. The temptation and the willpower to resist the cookies caused a huge depletion in willpower in the radish-eating group. The radish-eating group that only smelled the cookies, they made far fewer attempts at solving the puzzle, and they devoted less than half the time solving the puzzle compared to the other groups. Again, proximity is power. And this happened just by being around the cookies, right? Just by the environment that they put themselves in changed their behavior. So the big question is, like, what do we remove? And I'll give you like big examples and a big list of what to remove, but you want to remove as much as humanly possible. You want to remove anything and everything that causes distraction until you can't remove anymore. So remove things that really make sense to you. So I can't tell you what to remove because some things might make sense to you, some things you might need for focus and willpower, and other times, the things that you remove, another person might not be able to remove because it causes, or it's essential for their focus and environment. So you want to remove things that make sense to you. And don't remove them for the sake of being minimalism. That's defeating its purpose, right? Don't let minimalism get in the way of action. So if you're just removing things to remove things, that in itself is a form of distraction. So you want to get rid of things for the sake of shifting your behavior, trying to change your behavior into creating more focus as possible. And so you're creating space. You're creating space both physically and mentally. So you have that mental space and capacity that's open for more creativity, for more productivity, for more intelligence, for you to create more ideas in your life. So here's just an example of things that I removed through this process. So I removed as much stuff or physical things as possible. I seriously went through a big purge and cleanse in my life. I got rid of everything, all of the things that I didn't need, like all of my clothes. Like my closet is very simple now. I got rid of so much clothes. Like I used to have, I don't know, like over a dozen pair of pants that I never wore. You know, it's classic 80-20, right? 80-20 syndrome. I wore like 1 to 2 pants 90%, 95% of the time, and I never wore the other pants. So I got rid of all of those clothes because they cause distraction. I got rid of like all of my shirts that I don't wear, these fancy shirts and these sweaters, jackets that I bought long ago and I never wore. And in this process, by the way, Craigslist is your friend. You can either sell them on Craigslist or you can give them away on Craigslist. I also got rid of watching the news. This is known as an information diet. Tim Ferriss calls this the information diet, right? And guess what? I haven't seen a single piece of news in about, I think it's 8 years now. I haven't watched a single piece of news in 8 years. And guess what happened? You know what happened? Nothing happened. Did I miss out on anything? No. In fact, the opposite happened. I got more productive than I ever was in my life by not watching news. And so news can be really, really distracting to your life. Again, it's like that consumer mindset. Like, we have to watch the news to keep up with the Joneses, to see what's going on in the world. You don't have to. And most of the news is negative anyway. It's like, why would you want to have negativity around in your life every day? All right, so I took a big information diet. I haven't watched any single piece of news for the longest time. So you can remove news to increase your focus power. And I don't even answer my phone anymore. I let it go to voicemail because if it's really important, they will leave a voicemail, right? And most of the phone calls that I get, they're like unknown numbers anyway. And people don't even call anymore these days. It's more about texting now. And so I also got rid of social media on my phone. I don't have Facebook. I don't have Instagram. I don't have any of that stuff. If I really, really have to check it, I would check it on my laptop, but not on my phone. It seriously causes distraction. And you know that it causes distraction when you have those things around. Commuting. I try to remove as much commute as humanly as possible. My commute is now like 5 minutes because I like to get out of my house most of the times, and I like to work in coffee shops and cafes, and I like to grab a corner in the coffee shop so I'm not distracted. And so my commute is like 5 minutes from my house. So I got rid of transportation essentially. So I got rid of useless meetings. Some of these meetings, they just take up time and it's like, you don't get anything done. You're not really moving the needle here. So I got rid of meetings. I also avoid peak rush hours. This is actually very big. So I never commute or take the train during these peak rush hours because I live in Korea and the rush hours here can get crazy. I feel like a little ant in line waiting to go on the train. And so I really avoid these rush hours. And here is a little tip, okay? If you are working out and if you have flexibility in your schedule and your time, if you're like an entrepreneur or a creator, then my workout schedule, I avoid early mornings and I avoid rush hour times after work. So I usually go to the gym at about 10 o'clock. By 10 o'clock, because most people have a 9 to 5, right? They are at their work. So the gym at this time is completely empty. So I get like all the machines to myself when I go to the gym at this time. So this is a little tip to avoid those rush hour peak times at the gym. And I also avoid loyalty programs. You know, like the cashback rewards programs, or like they give you like these fancy Starbucks card or like these coffee bean cards, or like these other loyalty, programs, right? I really get rid of that because even though you're saving like a few cents here and there, it's really not worth my mental energy to invest in those. So I get rid of all that stuff. So your physical environment. If you have a messy room, you're going to have a messy mind. And you're not going to notice this consciously, but on a subconscious level, a messy room, messy environment, messy computer, messy phone is a messy life. So you remove the physical clutter, you also are removing the mental clutter. How you do one thing is how you do everything. One thing, your environment, as small as it may be, it affects your mind, which affects your life. So you can see like your room, your environment is a tangible version of your subconscious mind. It shows up in the things you do. So your room is your subconscious mind. And your mind becomes your environment. So it's like a loop that feeds back onto itself. And it shows up in all the things you do. If you have a messy mind and it's really filled with clutter, Carl Jung, the great psychologist, he calls this the shadow. All those messy things that you have, the clutter that you have, it follows you around everywhere you go. So how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you clean all this up, then you have not a shadow anymore, but you have a guardian angel following you around. It creates a better halo effect than the shadow that's following you around. So your environment is a representation of your mind. Your environment not only creates your mind, but it becomes a feedback loop. Your environment creates your mind creates your environment. So your mind becomes your environment. Messy environment, messy subconscious is a messy life. Okay, so I talked about meetings. So you have to ask yourself, why am I doing a meeting? Is there a point to this meeting? Or are we doing a meeting for the sake of having a meeting? Are we doing a meeting because society told us that we should have a meeting? You really want to look at it from an efficiency type of standpoint. Really look at it from like a good website programmer or a computer programmer. Like they want to try to reduce as many lines of code as possible, right? You really want to become efficient, just like an engineer. Is there a point to this meeting? Is there a point to this line of code? Is there a point to this little metal piece in this building, or can we get rid of it? And information diet. So again, I talked about this. Get away from mainstream news, because news is not really news. We really got to think about this. News is not really news. These news companies, they're just a group of people, a group of quote unquote journalists, and they have to come up with something every day. And even though it's not newsworthy, they try to make it newsworthy because they have to come up with interesting stories, all right, to get the ratings up, to have people glued onto the TV. And even though it's not newsworthy, they make it into news, even though it's not going to change any part of your life. It really isn't. It's just distracting you. And most of it, again, is negative, right? Why would you surround yourself with negativity every day? Why would you invoke negative emotions by watching these news? Learn to say no. This is a big one. And this actually was really hard to me because I, back in the day, was like, I had to be nice to everybody. I had to be kind to everybody. I had to do what they told me. I had to do what they said. And so this was really hard for me. But over time, it gets easier and easier and easier. Now I say no to everything. I really do. I say no to everything. Like it's seriously, I cherish, I value my time so much. Instead of saying yes to an appointment with somebody, to a meeting, to a party, I would really like to allocate that time instead to really doing things for the world, really adding value to the world, creating things, inspiring people, and creating programs just like this one, right? And helping people instead of going out to a party. So if somebody asks, you want to go to a party this week? You can tell them, no, I have an appointment. And I have an appointment with myself. It was one of your action items. And you can show them your appointment that you have so that it's easier for you to say no. Practice saying no because you are scheduled to be doing your craft, remember? You're not scheduled to be going to your party. This is so much better. This is so much more fun than a stupid little party. And you can always go to a party later. You can go to a party after you have created your creation. So say no. Your gift to the world is more important than a party. You also want to do a food purge, especially when we are starting keto. So you want to do a kitchen and pantry purge. Remember the cookie example? What we have around us will leak out willpower and it will really cause distractions in our lives. So throw out all this sugary shit. You don't need it. It really causes temptation. Instead of sugar, you can have erythritol. right? You can have stevia instead. It'll leak so much goddamn willpower. So seriously, throw it all away. Go through a big food purge. And you also want to be conducting digital design, digital environment design. Remove apps that don't serve you. Remove as much as possible. Remove as much as possible. You really want to go through your apps and really ask yourself, is this getting me closer to my goal, or is this just really distracting me? You might not think that it makes a big difference, but it makes a tremendous amount of difference. So if you are doing the attention hours, you will notice like a lot of your time and your hours, especially in the beginning, are going towards social media and other apps on your phone. So you really want to get rid of those things. Seriously do. Clean up your phone, clean up your photos on your phone, clean up your desktop, get rid of the unnecessary files, your downloads folder. I do like a big purge of my downloads folder every once in a while. Your emails, your notifications on your phone. Okay, you want to turn off all notifications, by the way, when you are in flow mode. And also, things you said yes in moments of weakness. Okay, this is important. Things you said yes to stages of your weakest version of yourself, not your best version of yourself. We talked about your higher self versus your lower self. Sometimes we say yes to things in these lower self moments, in moments of weakness, whether it's because of peer pressure, whether it's because we were caught in that consumer mindset at the time, whether it was alcohol or you just were in a different state. And you might have said yes in these lower stages, but then when you get to a state that is in your best version of yourself, when you get to a higher level type of state, then you realize, like, why did I say yes to that appointment? Why did I say yes to that party? And so you can actually cancel this out. You can go back and say, okay, never mind, I don't think I can make that party. And they don't really serve you or anyone around you if you're saying yes in those moments of weakness. So take those moments of weakness look at them with a fresh set of eyes, and really ask yourself, do I really need this thing? If not, then get rid of it. You can always cancel. You can always reverse things. It's not truly permanent. And here is a big ownership mindset. Everything that you own ends up owning you. This is from Fight Club, right? Tyler Durden. And I really love that movie. Not because of the fighting or the action, or not even because of the storyline, but I love that movie because there are many hidden philosophies in that movie. A lot comes from Eastern philosophies. Of course, they took it to like the extremes, and it's not really practical, but there were really hidden gems of philosophy in that movie. And one of them was about ownership, right? Tyler, he says, the things you own end up owning you. You are not your clothes. You are not your khakis. You are not the consumer material things that you bought. That is not you. And everything that you own ends up owning you. And he says, this is a beautiful line, by the way, it's only after we've lost everything that we're free to do anything. So we're creating space where we're removing ourselves from the shackles of consumerism. And that is how we can become truly free. And here's another beautiful quote. If you love a flower, don't pick it up. And because if you pick it up, it dies and it ceases to be what you love. So if you love a flower, let it be. Love is not about possession. Love is about appreciation. Appreciate the things in your life. Don't think about owning everything left and right. Think more about appreciating the things that really count. Does your TV, does that really bring about a true sense of appreciation? Or are you more appreciative of the fact that you have amazing friends? Or are you more appreciative of the fact that you can be doing your craft? You love what you do. Or are you more appreciative of your body and your health, especially when you're on keto? So think about the things that really count in your life rather than the menial physical things that you don't really need in your life. So it brings about freedom. What minimalism really is you are freeing yourself from material items. When you become attached to certain things, you become its slave. It's like a shackle. When you remove the shackles that bring you down, you get your freedom back. And a big positive side effect of essentialism, here's a big, great side effect. If you start removing things, both physical and digital, here's what happens. Cleaning gets ridiculously easy and at times even irrelevant. when you get rid of all of this stuff and you clear up your mind and your environment, the default becomes cleanliness. Like my room, I barely have to clean it anymore because it's always so clean, because there's like nothing in here. Same thing goes with your digital stuff. When you get rid of all the stuff, cleanliness becomes the default, and you become more organized, and you can find your stuff a lot more easier and a lot more faster. So you don't have to clean your room because it's already clean. Think about how many hours you get back because you're not cleaning anymore, right? We spend maybe hours and hours cleaning our rooms, but if it's already clean, if you got rid of all the stuff that creates messiness, then you don't even have to clean it up anymore. So it saves you a lot of time, gives you your freedom back. And you don't have to organize because it's already all organized for you. You save so much time cleaning your house or apartment when you stay minimalism. And so there are many designs, of interior designs that practice minimalism on purpose, right? And look at this, it just looks so much more cleaner if you don't have many things in the environment. So again, simplicity is beauty. And it's not just physically, but it gives you the big mental freedom that we talked about. Mind is time. Where your attention goes, energy flows, your time goes. If you have distracting things inside of your environment, that's where your distraction goes, that's where your mind goes, that's where your time goes. And time is the most valuable thing that you own. And you are wasting it on small little trivial materialistic things. So environment space, having a clean environment space is mental space, is time space. Let's get into our mission for today. Here are your action items. And here are your action items on top of the other action items that you should be doing. Okay, so you should constantly be logging in your flow hours, and you should constantly be working on your one thing. So purge, let's define purge. Purge, to rid of an unwanted quality, condition, or feeling. Let's define cleanse, to make thoroughly clean. And that's what we are trying to do with this process. Remember, we want our default mode physically and both mentally as clean as possible. So first one, write a list of everything you can remove and remove it now. So take out a piece of pen or paper, or pen and paper, or funny enough, a note-taking app if you want to do this digitally, and just write down everything you can remove and remove it now. And look around your environment. Go around your room. See and list things that you can remove and remove it now as much as you can. Second, to remove one thing every day on top of this until there is no more to remove. And you want to do this at the end of the day because you want to dedicate your mornings and your most productive hours working on your craft. And you want to make it a massive action item at the end of the day. And you want to schedule in a weekly purge, a quarterly deep cleanse, as well as your daily action items for today. And number 4 is I'll give you some tips. So action item number 1, let's write a list of everything you can remove and remove it now, please. So it's different for everybody. Okay, so like if you're single and living by yourself, this process might be different if you are married and have 6 kids, because you don't want to start going around and throwing away all your kids' diapers and toys and everything and make their life miserable. So it's different for everybody. So just do what makes sense to you. Take out a piece of paper, write everything down you can remove, and ask yourself, does this fuel or stamp out my fire? Does this move me closer to my goal? Does this give me more focus power? Does this give me more flow? Or does it stamp out my fire? And so you want to go through each of those items and ask yourself that big question. And also ask yourself, why do I have this? What type of state was I when I first purchased this? Was I in a moment of weakness, or was this the best version of myself when I purchased this? Like, why do I have this? Really ask yourself, why do I have this thing lying around my house? What is this for? Right? And if you're not using it, just throw it away. Here's the thing, you can always buy it back later. It's almost everything is always reversible. So here are general guidelines, and this is like the original minimalism type of guideline. And you want to remove everything until you have 150 items in your house and no more. But that's just a general guideline. Everybody's different, right? I think I would say more than this for sure. I would say like I would have, I don't know, a few hundred items, but I don't have much. Seriously, I don't have much at all. Only things that are essential, and plus some keto stuff and some supplements, but that's about it. So essentialism is a little different from the original minimalism concept. So let's remove things until we absolutely cannot remove anymore. And and when there becomes like this plateauing effect, when we start to see marginal increases in our focus and our productivity. So here are just some things you can remove. Digital stuff like apps, photos, desktop, downloads folder, email notifications, unnecessary files and programs. Get rid of all those apps that you're not using. And physical stuff, you want to clean out your pantry, your kitchen, closet. Get rid of those clothes you're not wearing. Give them away, sell them. You can earn a lot of cash actually. I've sold many things on Craigslist and actually made quite a bit of cash by selling them. And it's stuff that I don't even wear anymore. And the people I sell it to, they're so appreciative because I gave them a really good deal on the clothes that I sold them. So it's seriously like 95% of my closet I never even wore, and I really sold them to everybody. And my shoes too. God, I used to have so much shoes, and I just started getting rid of them one by one, and it seriously made my life so much easier. Made my room so much cleaner too. All right, and so clean up your room, obviously. So clean up your desk, your work environment, of course, your workspace, and some tasks and consumption items that you can also remove. Remove meetings. News, don't watch the news, don't watch mainstream media. You don't gotta follow your favorite vlogger every single day. It's not really adding much to your life. Okay, so get rid of those stuff. Okay, and action item number 2. Remove one thing every day until there is no more to remove. So on top of everything that you're getting rid of today, you want to make this a habit. At the end of the day, get rid of everything. Or not get rid of everything, but get rid of one thing. Just one thing. It's very easy. Just look around the room, look around your phone, and just remove one thing at the end of every day. Make this a habit until the end of the program. And you will have gotten rid of a lot of things. You have made your life a lot cleaner. And make it a massive action item list at the end of the day. Action item number 3, schedule a weekly purge and a quarterly deep cleanse. So every week you want to do a bigger purge. You want to get rid of more items. So every week, here's how I do it. I get rid of 7 to 10 things until I really can't remove anything. Even today, I'm still getting rid of things. I still have a lot of things to get rid of. And so you can schedule it out something like this. So you can schedule, I like to do Sundays, and Sundays are my batching days, by the way. So weekly purge can look something like this, and your quarterly deep cleanse, this is when you get real deliberate and really try to remove as much as possible. So during the quarterly deep cleanse, I actually clean up my room, even though it's already clean, like, there's still gonna be like dust and stuff everywhere. So I clean up my room, my bathroom, and I start to just get rid of things that I overlook during the quarter. All right, action item number 4. Here are some tips, okay? If you really can't eliminate an item, or if you can't really eliminate a certain action or a task, ask, can I automate this? Can I delegate this? Can I swap this with somebody who likes doing this? Say, for example, you have like a task of accounting. You have to keep track of your accounting and your bookkeeping. Well, you can't really eliminate that if that's part of your business, right? But you can ask yourself, can I automate this? Are there any software or any, ironically, apps that can help me with this process? Or can I delegate this to somebody else? Can I hire somebody to do my bookkeeping for me so that it can give me more time to focus on what I love to do? Can I swap this with somebody who likes doing this? Say you don't want to clean your room, but you know somebody, like maybe your significant other or like a roommate or somebody who likes cleaning the room. Then maybe you can swap that task. They can clean your room and then you can do something for them that you like doing. Or you can also hire a cleaner or something. And so, big tip. I don't like to clean or organize during flow. So during flow and during a big project, when I'm just like involved and I'm just accelerating in a project, I don't really like to interrupt myself and to keep everything organized. So for example, let's just say I'm working on a project and I downloaded like all these pictures. During flow, I don't want to be like organizing and naming all these pictures, right? Because that doesn't move the needle forward. What moves the needle forward? What moves the needle forward is me completing that project, and renaming my pictures gets in the way of that final result. So during flow, I don't like to clean or organize. It's after I finish the project or after my flow time that I start to organize. So you want to set a different time for you to be organizing and for you to be cleaning and purging and cleansing. Okay, so here's another tip. When removing things, this is a big question. Can this be reversed? If I toss this out, can this easily be reversed? So some of the apps on your phone that you're really hesitant to get rid of, like Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff, seriously, you can just download them again if you want to reverse it. It goes for most things, not just apps, but physical things too. And you really got to ask yourself, can I really get rid of this? And can I reverse it if I change my mind at the end? And the answer to most of this is yes, it is easily reversible. You can always download that app again. You can always buy that TV again. You can always buy that PS5 again. It's easily reversible. So you can ask yourself, can I replace this later? Can I undo this? Can I download this later? And why do I have this? What's its purpose? Like, why do I have this thing that's lying around my house? Why do I have 13 pairs of shoes? It's just making my entranceway very messy. It's hard to get in the house even. Like, why is this even here? I don't even wear these shoes. Where did I get this mindset from? So it's really asking yourself why and going deep down the trail of whys. Why do I have this? Okay, so why did I get it? Okay, why did I get it then? And again, it's like following the trail of whys, right? To get down to its roots, the root cause that caused you to have it in the first place. And again, it's probably reversible. You can always reinstall that app. You can always buy it again if you really need it, but you probably don't. It's very rare that I wander onto something and say, oh, wait, I need that thing, but I got rid of it. Oh no, it's very rare. And you don't even think about it, to be honest, because once you remove it, again, it's like out of sight, out of mind. You're not even consciously aware of it. You don't even miss it. It's like, what's there to miss when I'm not even using it, right? So if it's easily reversible, it should be a no question removal. Just remove it. You really got to let go. Let it go. It's not important. It really isn't. I mean, at first, it's going to take a little bit of, you're going to be really opposed to the idea at first. It's like, oh, I got to get rid of this. And there's going to be a lot of resistance at first. But the more you start doing this, the easier it gets. And you can also start to see the benefits too. Like the more you get rid of things, the easier cleaning gets. The easier and cleaner your life gets. So fear mindset. We think we might need things for later. So like we stock up on all these things that we might need in case of emergencies or backups, right? Honestly, we rarely need any of it. We rarely do. And this is by Mark Twain. He said it beautifully. I'm an old man, and I've known a great many troubles. But you know what? Most of them, they never happened. And you know what? Most of the things that we fear, that we're missing out on, they will probably never happen. And you know what? The fears, even like those dumb fears that we have inside our brains, like the fear of flying and wondering if this plane is going to crash or not, you know what? It's probably not going to happen. Chances are we have more chances of winning the lottery multiple times than getting into one of these accidents. So unless you have won the lottery recently, don't worry about these irrational fears. They will most likely not happen. So unplug, uninstall. So if you don't want to get rid of your TV, you can just unplug it. Make it as hard for you as possible. Many steps in the way of you and your TV as possible. Unplug your game console, put it away, put it in your closet, lock it up. Do what Victor Hugo did. Lock up all your stuff and give the key to somebody else. And uninstall all your games on your computer. You really want to be focusing. And here's a tip. Make your bed. It helps out with the cleanliness. It helps out with a clean mind. It instills the cleanliness mindset. Clean environment is a clean mind. I make my bed every single day in the morning, right when I wake up. It doesn't even take that long. It takes, 30 seconds to make my bed, and it makes the environment so much clean. And here's the last tip. I know for some of us, we have this attachment, this emotional attachment to some of our items. Like we really can't get rid of this item because we have an emotional attachment to it. Like, okay, I got this. This was a gift from my first love and it has sentimental value. But if we are trying to really build ourselves, to really become the best version of ourselves, do we still want to identify with ourselves in the past? Because that object that we are clinging onto is a projection of our past. So if we can't get rid of our past and our past self, then we can't really turn into that best version of ourselves, because the past behavior, the past identity is dragging us down. Does that make sense? We want to get rid of things from our past, from our old self, our older model, those selves where we were in those weak moments. We want to let those stuff go so that we can become the strongest, the greatest, the best version of ourselves that we can possibly be. And some of these items They might have that sentimental value, but you've really got to let go of the past in order to create the awesome and amazing present that you will be creating for yourself. And I know if you really, really don't want to get rid of it, you don't have to. Do what makes sense for you. But I just want to portray this picture that if you can't get rid of those stuff, you are hanging on to your old identity. And what we want to do is try to improve ourselves on an ongoing basis. And remember, all this material stuff, it's just stuff. And I will leave you with this piece of poetry from Joshua Fields Milburn. He is one of the minimalists. It says, love people and use things because the opposite never works. And I will leave it at that for today. Thanks for watching this lesson, and I will see you in another lesson, cleaner, newer, and ready to take on the world. That's it. I'll see you next time. Peace out.